Hello, this is Raziel Cohen with ndftraining.com, and today we're going to be talking about the 193 riser from Reptilia Core. So to start off, what is this riser? What is the point of a riser in general? So until this point, there have really been only two options available on the market for risers for your optic. The first one is an absolute co-witness, which means that when you look through your red dot, you're going to see that it completely aligns with your iron sights. And the other option was the lower 1/3, which means that your optic would be slightly above your iron sights. So there was different preferences for people of which ones to choose. Most people today are not using absolute co-witness. Most people are using the lower 1/3 just because since optics are very reliable today and it's usually not going to be a problem, people prefer to have the red dot just above it so that they're not kind of distracted or have more of a busy reticle with other things happening inside their red dot. So after a while, people are realizing that the higher the optic is, the easier it's going to be able to get a proper shouldering of the rifle without you needing to worry about seeing anything else, as well as also not straining your neck. So another company that came out with a riser was Unity Tactical. Unity Tactical came out with a 2.25 riser, which definitely has its place, but what this optic and what this mount does in combination is going to be much more realistic and much more useful for the average person as opposed to the Unity. The Unity does have its place on the market, but for what I've seen, it's much more for night vision use or using a respirator, something like that. And there's nothing wrong with it, but this has a much better place on the market for the average guy who is looking to get a little bit of a riser that doesn't seem a little bit too ridiculous. So when I first started using this riser, the first thing that anyone does when they pick it up is they say, wow, it's a very, very simple riser that once it brings it up, you could see it really come into your eye line much better. And for me, that what I prefer is that it's not that it's at my cheek. It's not such a low point that when I bring up the optic, it's still low enough that my cheek is what's touching the buttstock. I prefer to be able to have a little bit of my cheek still touching it. So when I bring up the gun and I bring it into my line of sight, I still have a lot of my cheek still touching the buttstock of the gun, so I still feel like I have a lot of control. But you could get a picture, the sight picture of the red dot much faster than if you had a lower 1/3. Now, it seems like a very insignificant difference in regards to height, but that little bit of difference makes a very big difference when it comes to straining your neck, as well as also how quickly you could pick up the reticle. So something like this is so simple in comparison to how quick you could pick up that reticle as opposed to the lower 1/3, which I didn't think was going to be a big deal. Now, when it comes to construction, this is a very, very nicely built mount. It's a one-piece, solid piece of metal, and it has a screw where you're able to use as a, you put Loctite on it and able to mount it onto your rail. Now, I actually prefer this because in the upcoming videos that you guys are going to see with the weekly training videos, which we post obviously weekly, my Holosun mount actually got loose on me during that video and it started to shake. And that's because it has a quick detach. Now, a quick detach is a great feature if you're actually going to be using it often. If you have multiple AR-15s and you have a quality red dot that you want to swap between rifle to rifle and re-zero each time you do that, then fine. But the average person is putting their mount onto the rifle and never touching it again. They want to maintain that zero. They know they have a confidence in that zero and you don't want to touch it, which is what I realistically do. So having the Holosun mount, although the mount was fine, it could get loose because it's a quick detach, and it could be something that since there's multiple points that are able to change for tightness, it's able to get loose. Versus this one being a one piece, since the mount is solid and there's only one screw point that you could put red Loctite if you prefer, or blue Loctite, which is what a lot of people do. It's stationary, it stays there, you never need to worry about it, and it's a very solid piece. Now, the process to actually get the Holosun off of its original mount was really, really quite annoying because I actually had to whittle down the original screw. I'll try to roll in some footage of that. From the Holosun mount to be able to mount it onto this. Once it came onto this and I mounted it, the Reptilia mount comes with its own Allen key that you're able to tighten it down. It fits very, very snug, and it seems like a much better option than the standard mount that the Holosun came with. Mainly because not just the construction being very solid, but also the fact that it's a 1.93, which is that riser, as opposed to the lower 1/3. So this is another benefit, is that it's made in the USA. It's not a made in China piece of material, which is also beneficial to be able to have. So this was one of the things that they sent me that was actually very interesting, which might be worth taking a look at. Now, another huge selling point for this is that in comparison to other mounts that I've seen that are available in the market that either are a 1.93 or a 2.25, or just in general, risers that are available for red dots, is that this comes at a significantly lower price point for the construction and the design of this mount. This comes in at around $85 that I've seen online. So you're able to find it for around that price. You can, again, in comparison to other mounts that are available on the market, that they're going to at least double that in price, which is crazy. So for what it is, it's actually incredible. There's only one con that I've noticed when it came to using this mount, and the only con, which again, for the day and age that we're in, is not such a big deal, is that since it's a riser and it's a one solid piece of metal that's in the way, if you have backup sights on your rifle, it is going to line up with the lower part of your optic, which means you'll not be able to use your backup sights anymore unless you put your backup sights on a riser. Again, a lot of people are not really worried about that today because a lot of people aren't using them as much. So what you might end up doing is either getting offset iron sights, which means they'll be offside, like a little bit off the right side or the left side of the gun, depending on if you're a righty or lefty. Or you could do what else is also popular, is getting something like the Holosun 509T and mounting it as a secondary optic to your rifle. Again, it's not as popular today because optics are so durable and have such a great standing for reliability that it's not super, super important. Now, it is important in general to have some kind of backup sighting system. So whether that be iron sights or another optic is up to you, but it's not something that you should be overly concerned about because for the price and for the construction, it's actually a very, very great upgrade to your system. Another thing that Reptilia sent out for me to take a look at is one of their grips. So this is an AR-15 grip, and this is actually a very unique style grip as opposed to other ones that I've seen on the market. The best way for me to be able to describe it without you being able to hold it is that this is kind of like the Glock 19 grip of what's available grips that are currently available. So to give context, my current grip that I have on my AR-15, this is the BCM Gunfighter grip. This has like a very, very large handle for it. So for me that have quite large hands, when I'm gripping it, I still have a little bit of spacing on the bottom where I could still have a full grip and not be worried about slipping off. It also has that nub on the bottom, which is good because then you won't have any slip off. But again, this is kind of referred to as like what would be the Glock 17 grip, where it's a very large grip for like a gun size. This grip is kind of like the Glock 19, so it's a little bit smaller and it's a little bit slimmer. It has texture on the front and on the back, and it also has that nub at the bottom where you won't be able to slip off. So the angle of this, from what I understand also, is actually more, it's much straighter than the BCM grip, which the BCM grip is known to already be much lower of a degree of angle in comparison to other grips on the market, like the A2, which is kind of back. So this grip, in my opinion, it might be very beneficial for someone who has an SBR or an AR pistol where you're going to be much closer in. So instead of having kind of a bend on your wrist, which might get uncomfortable over time, this one is going to be able to have a straighter grip, which could be very comfortable. So there's not much to say about it except that it's very simply made. It's very simplistic. The side of it actually is very cool. You could see that if you follow Reptilia on Instagram, a lot of people make their own stipple work, which is a very smooth surface if you want to practice stippling for your AR-15. So you'd be able to get that and do stipple work of your own on the side of this grip. And the front of the back has its own stippling already, which is very nice for what it is. And also the beaver tail, I guess, of the back also goes up very nicely. And that area is smoothed out, unlike some that might have some texture there, which over time will rub against the back of your hand. So for me, this is actually a very nice grip. I think it's very well suited for an SBR style gun, which it's going to be shorter, so you can have a closer hold on the rifle. But this might be something else you might want to take a look at for simplistic use for your rifle. So just a recap of what we were speaking about today, the Reptilia 1.93 mount for me is now my go-to mount. I have it currently mounted on my primary rifle because I see the benefit of being able to have it, as well as also something that you might notice once you get one and be able to practice with it is if you're doing like building clearing and going around close quarters, when you have the gun at a low ready, you almost already see the reticle of the rifle, which is nice because then as you're looking around, all you need to do is bring it up just a little bit to be able to engage, and it makes it very simple. Also, re-zeroing it once you get it mounted up is very minimal because your zero is going to be only a little bit higher than what it usually is, which means you make quite a very small adjustment and you're back on target already, which is very nice. The one-piece design of having that screwed in very well and very solid is now much more of what I prefer as opposed to the quick detach mounts, which I wasn't using much anyway. So having that extra like sense of security is something that I definitely appreciate. As well as also their vertical grips. If you have something like an SBR or an AR pistol, it might be something you want to look into with regard to a very simple, very affordable grip that you could also practice stippling if that's something you want to do. You don't need to do that because the grip is already very nice, but that might be something that, if that's something you might be interested in, is a very easy way to be able to get into stippling and be able to practice your designs and your patterns without being worried about losing a huge amount of money on other pistol grips that might be available. So if these are something that you might be interested in, you could go check out Reptilia Core. I'm going to tag them below if you're watching this on Instagram. If you're watching this on YouTube, I'm going to leave a link to their website in the description down below. Please feel free to subscribe to this channel if you like this kind of content. We're going to be putting a lot more content out in the future with regard to reviews. I haven't been able to do that because we actually recently moved to a new studio, which for right now on camera might not seem like much of a difference, but hopefully soon the audio is going to get a little bit better. The scenes are going to be a little bit different. So I'm very excited to be able to share that with you guys in the future. This is Raziel Cohen with ndftraining.com. Thank you for watching.